There was a time where Marvel made something that they couldn't control. There was no multiverse, there were no jokes, there were no safety nets. It was just violence, consequences, and characters that felt real. Daredevil on Netflix wasn't just another superhero show, it was the best thing that Marvel ever made up until that point, and one of the best things Marvel's ever made up until now. So why is it that it feels like Marvel wants you to forget that era? Before Disney Plus, before the MCU became a content machine, Marvel took a risk. Daredevil dropped on Netflix in 2015 and immediately it felt different. There was no bright colors, no quippy tones. This was grounded and dark and brutal. Matt Murdock wasn't the American hero who was saving the world, he was trying to survive in it. Hell's Kitchen wasn't a playground for superheroes, it was broken and corrupt and dangerous and just a hellscape. But the show leaned into that. It was supposed to be darker. It was supposed to be grittier. Every punch felt heavy. Every fight felt exhausting. Every decision had consequences. There's a reason why the hallway fight scene still holds up today. It's why you still remember it and why you look back on that scene as being one of the best in the show. It wasn't cool because it looked great. It was cool because it felt real. Matt gets tired, he gets hit, he loses, he struggles, he breaks bones and gets his face cut open. And that's what made it work. But it wasn't just Charlie Cox as Daredevil kind of carrying that era and carrying that show. There were other fantastic characters in that show as well. Wilson Fisk might be one of the greatest villains that Marvel has ever written, if not the greatest villain Marvel has ever written. Fisk isn't loud and flashy, he's quiet and controlled and terrifying. And because of the format, Wilson Fisk was developed over a course of time. He had the luxury that a lot of Marvel villains don't have. He had time to breathe, time to develop, time to become something more than just the bad guy. And that's the key, is that Daredevil wasn't built like a Marvel show, it was built like a story. It was separate from the big machine. It wasn't a cog in a big system that is the MCU. It was in its own timeline, in its own world. Now luckily with Daredevil Born Again and them deciding to kind of go back to that and these characters popping up in other MCU projects, luckily you were able to kind of take that gear and put it into the clock of the MCU and it was all gonna work out fine despite it being darker and grittier. But at the time, they had no intention that this was gonna end up in the MCU. So whenever they introduced other fantastic characters like John Bernthal's Frank Castle, he was allowed to be how the Punisher is supposed to be. He was allowed to murder people. And thank God we're in a world today where we're gonna be able to get to see Daredevil and the Punisher interact with characters like Spider-Man, but you hope that they're not dulled down because they're being put into that world. Now, obviously, it's yet to be seen. We'll see what happens whenever Frank Castle and probably Daredevil is in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Those characters should all be interacting and evolving with each other. But if anything that we've seen from Daredevil Born Again, it seems like I think they know what makes it special. But when it comes to the original Daredevil show and the original Netflix era, here's the problem. It's that the MCU didn't follow that path. Instead of going darker, they went bigger. There were more characters, more crossover, more spectacle. And slowly the tone changed. Consequences became temporary, death became reversible, conflict became safer. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just different because Daredevil didn't feel like a product, it felt like a risk. And risk is something that modern MCU rarely takes. I mean, just take a step back and look at the other Disney Plus shows that have released other than Loki and Loki Season 2, which are incredibly special in their own right. But most of the Disney Plus shows that come out, they're cleaner and more polished, more connected, but also more controlled. They have to fit into a larger system, a larger narrative, and a larger brand. And when everything has to fit, Nothing can go too far. But the original Daredevil went too far. It was violent and uncomfortable, slow when it needed to be, and that's exactly why it stood out, but it's also why it didn't fully survive, because that version of Marvel doesn't really exist anymore. As good as Daredevil Born Again is, it still gets a lot of flack. Obviously, season 2 just came out, but season 1, people had some issues with it because it felt like it was too disconnected from the original show, trying to get it to fit into the MCU in a way. Like there's a weird middle gap there. It doesn't really fit into the current era MCU, but it also doesn't really fit like it's a natural continuation of the old Netflix show, but you can kind of take a step back and seem like it is like the old Netflix show. In a way, all the characters seem to have the same experiences and the same lives and the same story arcs that they went through in the original Netflix show, but whenever in the first episode Foggy dies almost immediately, that's kind of odd. And obviously behind the scenes there were some issues. They filmed this show and then realized that they were going about it all wrong and then re-scrapped it and retooled it so it kind of fit more the Netflix era, which it should have always fit the Netflix era. If you were gonna bring these characters back for a continuation into Daredevil Born Again, it shouldn't be anything other than what it was. So they're in a weird middle ground. I think in their own way, Marvel doesn't literally want you to forget about the Netflix era and forget that Daredevil existed, but they can't fully embrace it either, because it doesn't really represent the big machine that they're currently operating. I'm going to love to see these characters interact with Spider-Man in Brand New Day, but if you think that the Frank Castle you're gonna get in this Frank Castle one-shot special is going to be the same one that you're getting in Spider-Man Brand New Day, I think you might be crazy. But maybe that's not such a bad thing after all. But the original Daredevil show, it was its own thing. It was a version of Marvel that wasn't trying to appeal to everyone. It was a version that was willing to be smaller and willing to be different and willing to be darker and willing to be uncomfortable and willing to operate in its own space. And that's the real reason it feels forgotten, like they don't want you to remember it anymore, not because it failed as a show, because it absolutely didn't, but because it succeeded in a way that Marvel can't really replicate. But as we're heading into the second season of Daredevil Born Again, a revival, a second chance, but the real question isn't will it be good, the real question is will it be the same? Will it take the same risk? Will it slow down? Will it let characters breathe? Or will it become just another piece of the machine? Because Daredevil didn't just set the standard for Marvel, it set the standard for what superhero storytelling could be. And once you've seen that, everything else just feels a little safer. The biggest risk that Daredevil Born Again goes into while they are entering their second season, which feels like kinda the natural step because season 1 was so odd with the way they had to rewrite it and restructure it. It's challenging itself to not be a bigger part of the machine. It's challenging itself to not play it safe. And with this second chance of Daredevil Born Again, it just means that Daredevil isn't forgotten. It's just unmatched. And maybe that's why it stands out so much, because sometimes the best thing a studio ever makes is the one thing that they can fully never recreate. What do you think about Daredevil Born Again? I know that season 1 was a little odd because they had to restructure and redo the whole show after filming already finished, or most of filming already finished. But I think that the product that they put out, even though you could tell that a part of it would seem like a different show, like one half of the show felt like a different, like, television show than you were watching from the other half. But I think that the product that they put out was the best step forward. And I think that season 2 is off to a really good start. And I think that it's going to continue to be good. I think that there needs to be a happy middle ground. Like I said, I really want to see Spider-Man interact with Frank Castle and interact with Daredevil. And I want to see him interact with Wilson Fisk. Obviously, if they're going to be in the Spider-Man movie, there's a solid chance that Frank Castle's not going to be popping guys' eyeballs out. Of course. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be allowed to do it in his own show. And I think you can't take that away. I think you should let the Daredevil shows be gritty and be dark and be as destructive and uncomfortable as they were back then, and you should still be allowed to have Spider-Man interact with these characters in the Spider-Man movie. Hell, if I had it my way, I would put Spider-Man in the fucking Daredevil show. Obviously, we can't do that, but regardless, from what I have seen so far, it seems like that is the route we are going down. And I am very, very, very excited for that. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It really does help a lot. I recommend, if you want to see more videos that we do in the future, more stuff, click subscribe and then click the notification bell so you never miss a video from us. But that's all I got for the day. Hopefully you guys had a good week, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace, love, adios, and bye-bye.